but that means we have to move north up the coast and go to Bay FC. 2024 expansion year. They finished 7th in NWSL. They lost in the first round of the playoffs. Here's the note that I think is important. On August 31st, Abby Dahlkemper made her first start for this club. Albertine Montoya did an interview last week with Attacking Third where he mentioned the Barca friendly, which happened to be 2 days before that game, as the turning point for their season. They went 5-3-1 after Abby Dahlkemper entered the starting lineup. 3 losses, all to top 4 seeds. 1.8 points per game is the rate there. That would have been a 5th place finish over the full season if they had played at that rate all 26 games. They eventually lost at Washington in the opening round of the postseason after leading and then losing in extra time. So because of the hot finish, the offseason has been minimal for them. They brought in Kelly Hubley at center back and then 3 college stars, Hannah Bebar, who just played with the U.S. women's national team in January, Carla Lemma, the ACC Offensive Player of the Year, and then Taylor Huff from Florida State. On the way out, they traded Alex Larea and Daniel Castellanos, left as a free agent, and then Caitlin Rowland and Jen Beatty both retired. But for this team, Jordan, a promising year. You go now for your tactical prompt, and then Lori will take it from there.
Well, I think if you asked us what the tactics were for Bay last year, we would have given you 4 different answers throughout the season. I think it's a really good case study on how to build an expansion team. But Albertine Montoya wants to be a team who dictates the tempo with the ball. He wants the ball. They struggled with that at the beginning of the year because they gave up some goals, but they're going to play out of a 4-3-3 and utilize their main scoring threat is in transition using Rachel Kundananji to allow them that outlet. But I think the main focus for them, Lori, in preseason has to be how they can keep the ball a little bit more. They've shored up their defense with Abby Dahlkemper, as Goss mentioned, but this team has the ability to have more possession. Will they do that this year is the biggest question.
Yeah, and I think they will. I mean, this is going to be another year. It's always difficult, I feel like, to come into this league and be successful as an expansion team, and especially to be able to turn things around. I mean, we mentioned Abby Dahlkemper. That's a huge acquisition for them in the middle of the season last year, because one of the overarching themes for this team as well was that we need more veteran leadership. So I think that's where Kelly Hubley comes in. You mentioned solidifying them defensively. I think they still look like they're going to be a tough team to break down after they corrected that. But then even just the players that they brought in, yes, they're young players that Goss mentioned. Hannah Bebar from Duke, loved her. She was a huge player that allowed Duke to get to the national championship game. Taylor Huff, a 2-way midfielder that's going to cover a lot of ground. So if this is a team that's going to be able to keep possession, those two are going to add depth to that. And they're also going to be able to cover quite a bit of ground, particularly Taylor Huff. She can slot in as a number 8 competitor from Florida State. So you have the ability to not only play in transition with some of these new acquisitions, plus everybody 1 year more in experience under Albertine Montoya, which I think cannot be overstated. But then you also have the ability with some of these players that have been brought in to keep possession and create a bit more rhythm to give Ashwala Kundananji the ability to get into the box in better scoring positions.
I mean, I think the biggest conversation at Bay FC is who is going to play in goal. They have 3 goalkeepers on their roster, Jordan Silkowitz, Melissa Lauder, and Emmy Allen, who have 0 minutes played in our league. And with the departure of Caitlin Rowland in the middle of preseason, that's not a great sign when someone retires in the middle of preseason and leaving you 0 experience in goal. I do like Jordan Silkowitz. I think she has a lot of tools. I think she has a lot of intangible elements of her game. But again, with no experience, having played last 2 or 3 seasons ago in Australia, which isn't really a great indicator of how you're going to be able to perform in the NWSL, I think that's a little bit scary going into game 1 with no other potential options. Like if they said, okay, we're going to go get AD Franch because she's available, then I get that. Even if Franch were to be a backup to Jordan Silkowitz and an ice player in case of emergency player, let's put in someone who has proven that they could do it, a good shot stopper, will provide some good leadership and mentor this young player who has no experience and help her with the mental side of the game, because that's a big element when you're going into your first season with no safety net, in my opinion.
Jill, I have a question because we saw this last year with Angel City. You just kind of mentioned it with Ange Anderson, is she was given the opportunity and then taken out. And that's one of the difficulties too, is if you play one of these young goalkeepers, you kind of have to keep playing them and let them make mistakes, even if it costs you some difficult goals. How would you manage that? If you're the goalkeeping coach or the coach at Bay FC, how do you manage those situations?
Well, I think it's different for Angel City. I think at the end of last season, they said, okay, Ange is going to be our starter next year. This is who we're going to bank on is going to be our starter. They chose that situation. They chose the potential that Ange has and what they've seen over the course of 2 seasons. I think if they thought that, they should have put her out on loan to get her some minutes last year. But I totally understand, if Didi got hurt, they didn't feel comfortable with their number 3. Now Bay is in a predicament because they didn't choose this. They had gone into the season thinking that Roland was going to be their number 1. In my opinion, the goalkeeper coach becomes the most important person on your staff at this point to be able to help a young player transition, making sure that they're mentally capable and comfortable with making mistakes. It's going to happen. Right? It's going to happen. That's going to be the hardest part because Jordan Silkowitz does have a lot of tools to be able to defend the goal, start the in possession, which is important to Bay. Now it's just that mental resilience, making her comfortable, making her know that you believe in her. And no matter what happens, you're going to rock with her.
Well, look at us. We nailed this one. I'm not even going to set off the buzzer or the timer. Big question marks once again for Bay FC, but a lot of positivity coming out of last season.